Restore Hearts family. This is the voice of your host and producer, Tiara Sharma. And thank you so much for joining me today as we continue our series on mending mother-daughter relationships, a daughter's journey. Today, we're going to talk about the second letter of the acronym AFAR. So that is the letter F. And F stands for forgive. Many research articles talk about the effects that not forgiving have on the body. It has been linked to joint pain, autoimmune diseases, and cancer. And once again, I invite you to do some independent research to explore these facts for yourself. Now, forgiveness is one of the crucial steps of moving forward in your mother-daughter relationships. Forgiveness is twofold. So you have to forgive your mother, and then you have to forgive yourself. And so once again, I am with these examples that I'm giving today, they are based off of the letter that I wrote and read to my mother in December of 2020, expressing those painful emotions, those disappointments, those hurts that I felt that stemmed from childhood suppressed emotions. And so those were things that I needed to express to my mother, to acknowledge to myself, and to express to her, and able to move forward in mending our relationship. And so that next step of the process after acknowledging is to forgive. And so I'm going to start off with those things I had to forgive that pertain to my mother. So I forgive my mother for not being emotionally available to me. I forgive my mother for not spending quality time with me. I forgive my mother for not leaving my daddy. I forgive my mother for not operating in her God-given gifts and talent. I forgive my mother for living a mediocre life. I forgive my mother for being a source of stress and tension in my life. I forgive my mother for trying to do everything alone and allowing situations to get to crisis mode before seeking help. I forgive my mother for lying to me about her emotional state. I forgive my mother for using me to get money from my daddy when she didn't think he would give it to her directly. I forgive my mother for not creating a safe space for me to share my thoughts and emotions with her. I forgive my mother for not having the financial stability to take care of us. I forgive my mother for not learning how to drive. I forgive my mother for using me to meet her emotional and financial needs. So those were things that during my acknowledgement, I realized that I needed to forgive my mother for these things. These were the things that were holding me in emotional bondage. Don't fool yourself. When you don't forgive a person or yourself, when you don't forgive someone else or yourself, you are holding yourself we're talking about mental health and emotion. You're holding yourself in an emotional prison when you choose not to forgive your mother for those things that have hurt you. And you're not helping yourself, you're harming yourself. So I just wanted to let you know that, because next we need to forgive ourselves. And so these are some of the things that I needed to forgive myself for, because I didn't want to hold myself in an emotional prison. So I forgive myself for believing I was the answer to my mother's emotional and financial challenges. I forgive myself for making myself the financial savior for my mother's financial needs. I forgive myself for not telling the truth about my emotion. I forgive myself for not speaking up for myself. I forgive myself for living a mediocre life. I forgive myself for not operating in my God-given gifts and talents. I forgive myself for being a source of stress and tension to my family. I forgive myself for trying to do things alone and allowing situations to get to crisis level before asking for help. I forgive myself for lying about my emotional state. I forgive myself for not being emotionally available to my children and husband. I forgive myself for playing the character of the good child to please my mother. I forgive myself for taking on unnecessary stress, tension, and tasks that were not mine to take on. I forgive myself for believing I had to be perfect and that I could not make mistakes. So these are all of the things that I needed to forgive myself for because of how my thoughts and how my emotions were shaped from those experiences. These were unhealthy thoughts and emotion that became my normal, and that is dysfunctional. They were very dysfunctional. And so when I'm acknowledging and looking over those things, there's an opportunity to see where I need to forgive myself for those thoughts, for those emotions, and for those behaviors that developed in an unhealthy place. And so I don't know if you caught this, but a lot of the things that I had to forgive my mother for are things that I had to forgive myself for because a lot of our actions mirror each other. You can only give what you. And so this comes back to that point that I made, I don't think in this series, but it's coming back around that you cannot give what you don't have. And so as mothers, we're taking this position as a daughter because we need to release these things. But as a mother, we have to remember we can only give what we have. And so if you have not forgiven, if you're holding on to bitterness, if you're holding on to resentment, if you're holding on to anger, if you're holding on to dysfunction, this is all that you can give to your daughter, your son, your children. You cannot give them something you don't have. And so we have to address that lie that I often heard as a child, that I even hear sometimes today, is that I just want my children to be better than me. The problem with this statement is that if we are the role model, then they can only get what we have. And so they will not be better than you. Some things may be better if they get them from other people, but what comes directly from you will not be better. It will only be what you have. And so this is why we have to go first. This is why we have to be willing to be the change that we want to see in our children. We are the influence. And so these are the things that I had to forgive my mother for. And then as I was writing those things that I need to forgive myself for, I realized that they mirrored each other. They mirrored each other. And so I want you to pay attention to those things that you are forgiving your mother for, those things that made you upset, those things that may have made you feel resentful, bitter, hurt, disappointment. And then as you're forgiving yourself, see if those things begin to mirror. If you can find those traces of those things that made you hurtful about your relationship with your mother, are you seeing those things in yourself? Do you have someone close to you who can help you identify those things? Because some of us, I'll be honest and talk to myself, I didn't see that in myself. When I was so full of emotion, before I released the emotion, it's hard to see that the behavior that you despise is often the behavior that you are displaying with your own children or with your own spouse, with your own, maybe your coworkers, whoever you are in relationship with. That these things that we often want to hold on to and not forgive others for is the very same thing that we are doing. And so I want you to be careful to say that you won't forgive. I know that there's so many things that may come up as we're doing this exercise, that the things that your mother done to you, they may seem to be unforgivable, but there is no offense that is worth you staying in emotional bondage. Because rest assured, if your mother has forgiven herself and she's moving on, then you are the one who are suffering. And we've decided that we're not suffering. We're going to release it and we're going to move forward. And so I want you to take out your journal, take out your pen, don't hold back. Whatever comes up is what you write. Whatever comes up is what you say. And let's just release it. So now it's your turn. I want you to grab your journal, grab your pen, and let's release it. Let's write.
our store heart TD.
Life is a journey, and there are many moments. Some moments are smooth. You flow through them effortlessly. There are other moments when life's challenges interrupt your momentum, yet you find the strength to get back on track, to keep moving. So even if you have to crawl to make it there, do it, because victory belongs to you. You are equipped to handle every part of the journey. You were created to overcome this. Don't give up. I love you.